Hey gang, Spacetime Badass here. So today I want to talk about emotions and understanding emotions, identifying emotions, that sort of thing. Sparked by a recent question, which is basically amongst everything going on in a human brain, how can you really know um, what you're feeling and why you're feeling what you're feeling? This may seem kind of straightforward to a lot of people, hopefully, but more so, I'd have to agree that most people don't really recognize their emotions for what they are and understand why they feel them, and ultimately overcome the negative emotions based on simple logic. So, I want to share how I do this myself, and I've been doing this for for a few years, and it's really helped me tremendously with overcoming depression, suicidal thoughts, general anger, and dissatisfaction. So, 9 times out of 10, I would say that when you feel a negative emotion, there is no one to be blamed other than yourself. Now, I'm not saying if you suffer from depression, that's your fault, or if someone makes you feel terribly, that it's necessarily your fault, but ultimately, what you allow yourself to feel does come down to your decision. So if you ever want to not feel something, it's just as simple as understanding why you feel that way and why whatever event made you feel that way. So whenever you feel an emotion, the best thing that I would say to do is to first identify the emotion. So I feel sad or I feel angry or whatever. Identify the emotion, usually pretty easy. From there, why do I feel this way? So let's say I'm super angry or sad or whatever because someone said something to me that upset me. So we have the emotion, we have we'll say anger, just I don't know why I split up into two emotions. So I'm angry because some motherfucker said some stupid shit. So there's the reason. So from that point, what we want to do is say, why did the shit that this asshole said make me feel this way? Now, this is where we start to get somewhere. This is where we start to identify really what's going on with ourselves. So let's say that this slight that someone made wasn't really all that important to you, but mainly it made you feel as though you had no respect. And perhaps it's it's a bigger issue underneath that you feel like you might not get enough respect in your life. So ultimately, that's why that upset you. Because when it comes down to it, what a stranger says shouldn't affect you. In fact, what a loved one says really shouldn't affect you if you know what's going on with yourself. Because the more you know yourself and understand your emotions and why your emotions make, the more you understand yourself, the more you will understand your emotions. Thus, the more you will understand why certain triggers made you feel a certain way. Because when it comes down to it, some asshole saying some stupid shit doesn't matter, because there's assholes all over the world saying all kinds of stupid shit about all kinds of people all day long, every fucking day. It's your choice whether or not you let it affect you. So, if we say that we're not in the scenario, if we say that, oh, I don't have enough respect in my life and that's ultimately why it upset me, why don't you then have respect in your life? Why do you think that might be? Could be that you're surrounding yourself with people who don't respect you for a multitude of reasons, but ultimately it's who you surround yourself with. And if you find yourself around people who don't respect you, then I would say find new people who you respect and who respect you back. Or you could show the people in your life your worth. Ultimately, if someone just doesn't respect you no matter what you do, there's no point in trying to get someone to respect you. Respect is something that you can't really get out of someone who doesn't want to give it to you. And how do you make someone want to give you respect? You know, it's different per person. And I don't think it's really worth your time to try to figure out what's going to satisfy someone else. You shouldn't live your life based on how you think people will perceive you because of that. And ultimately, what it comes down to is that simple measure right there. You don't want to base how you're feeling and how you perceive yourself based on how other people see you and perceive you and say things about you. Because I had a problem with this for the longest time. I I valued my self-worth at the price that other people were willing to pay for it. And this is incorrect. You need to be getting your self-worth from within. You need to say, these are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that make me feel good about myself and about my life. And you need to do those things, concentrate on those things and on yourself, and making yourself happy by surrounding yourself with as many things that you enjoy as possible, and people and situations. And the more you do that, the more you put effort into yourself and making yourself live a better life by your own standards, then all those people who respect you are going to come to you. Now, it may not even be an issue of like respect or anything like that, but the point is, usually there's an underlying problem underneath the emotions that you need to identify and address. This comes up a lot in lucid dreaming, and that's why I feel I know so much about it, because you can have a lucid dream that will give you so much insight and show you exactly what you need to do in your life. And once you do that, you're a better, happier person just by that much. And the more you do it, the better of a person that you will become. Now, the same goes for this practice. So, in essence, identify the emotion, identify the trigger for making you feel that emotion, identify why that trigger made you feel that emotion, which is the very important one. And once you understand why a certain thing made you feel a certain way, then you can dig in deeper and understand more about yourself. So that's really all there is to it. It just takes some time for reflection, and I know a lot of people don't take the time to reflect, but it's a very important thing. We live in a very digital age. We are constantly exposed with stimulus, sounds, videos, all kinds of ads, all kinds of people telling you, you need this to be a better person, you need this to be more complete, you need this if you want this. And really, what it comes down to is what's inside. And if you don't know what's going on inside, then, I mean, you're just as clueless about yourself than anyone else would be. And I would like to think that you know more about you than anyone else on the planet. So you need to do what's best for you. So let me think of like a personal example so that we can possibly glean a little bit about this from like a real life example. So, excuse me, I'm sorry. Should I get a drink? So, in my life, at a certain point, I had a lot of stuff going on. I had just gotten out of a 6-year relationship. The person just kind of disappeared one day, and I had seen them, every day for almost 6 years. We lived our lives together, and I get home from work one night, and she's nowhere to be found. I try to call her, can't get a hold of her, and I'm panicking, so I call her parents, and they don't know where she's at. And this goes on for a week. Like, it's just a straight week. And then she shows up at my house with a gang of people. And a gang of people that's like half of which I didn't know, half of which I like, friends of friends kind of thing, which I assume is how she got into this scene. She comes to grab a couple of things. I managed to like get a little bit out of her, and she mentions that she's been doing coke and all this stuff, and I'm like, you don't need to be around all these people. I've known you for this long. If you don't want to be in this relationship, that's fine, but I don't think you should surround yourself with people that are gonna like, give you tons of coke and make you walk out on your life, not even go to work. But Didn't do anything. We ended up breaking up. It was very heartbreaking and very difficult for me in itself. But when I got to a point where I could heal, um, I still hung on to it. And even though I was still hanging on to it, I eventually started to date other people as I thought that might help. But what I noticed, I did feel as though I had forgotten, the heartache at a certain point investing myself in someone else. Now, we all know that it's not okay to do that. Um, we all, I think, are guilty of it at one point or another in our lives to kind of hide our sorrow for another person in another person. But I truly did feel like I was like I was over it, and I was gonna, just be with this person. And the thing of it was, even though I felt this person made me happy, we'd go on dates, and I would have to excuse myself to go to the bathroom, and there I would have an anxiety attack, and I would just basically hyperventilate, and I would kind of be very nervous because it was very important to me that this person not leave me. And at the time, I remember not knowing what was going on because it didn't make sense for me, because I was like, no, I'm totally over this person. Now I'm with this person, and they were like my prime objective. And I just didn't know what was going on. I thought I was just very nervous because I hadn't been in the dating scene for so long. And ultimately, underneath it all, when I had scared this person off from being basically crazy, um, that's when I finally began to question the things that I was feeling. And it was a bit of transference, I didn't care so much about this person that I was with. I was just taking that emotion from my previous relationship and tacking it on to a new person. And I'm not saying that, it's a good thing or anything like that. We all know it's actually quite unhealthy, but a lot of people do it, and they don't even realize it. Even someone like myself, who I kind of know what's going on in my own head, especially now since I've been doing these exercises. But it's just like a real life example of how not knowing what's going on inside really can fuck with your life and who you are. Had I looked into myself, identified my emotions and why I felt those emotions, I would have realized that I wasn't angry at her. There was no one that I could blame other than myself for what I was feeling. Even though she had done an absolutely horrendous thing, everybody's just trying to be happy. And at some point she thought, hey, this is going to make me happy, so she did it. And when you hang on to guilt and all the pain and the woulda, shoulda, couldas, when you hang on to all that, it hurts you. So really the trick is, with identifying your emotions and understanding them, you can take a step back from your emotions and say, the only reason that I am feeling this is because I'm hanging on to this or I'm doing this. And when you understand that and you cut out that behavior, you're kind of severing that emotion. You're allowing yourself freedom from the negative emotions. Now, a lot of people with like meditation and Eastern philosophies are really good for helping people understand these sorts of situations. And it's one thing that I greatly admire about those cultures is that they can understand what's going on, and understanding that ultimately the pain you feel is your fault. So I'm not saying like, oh, just get over it, but understand your emotions. At the heart of it all is understanding your emotions. So in this situation, if I had just identified my emotions, I would have been healthy a lot faster. I would have been able to date a lot faster, and I would have known when was the right time for me to start dating, so that then I could have made myself open for another person and be complete before going to someone else, because no one else is going to make you complete. It has to come from within. So I hope this helps you guys in some way. I know it's very simple and kind of silly, but It really does work. Identify the emotion. Ask yourself why you're feeling this emotion. Ask yourself why the trigger made you feel this emotion. And relate it to things in your past. Say, you know, when I felt this way in the past, what ultimately was underneath it all? What did I feel better after doing? But basically, introspection. Think as much as possible about your emotions. Reason your emotions and understand, ultimately, you will understand that they're all coming from you. They're not coming from anyone else. Your emotions exist because you allow them to, basically. I used to think that love was something, you can't control who you love, and I thought that was true for the longest time. But when you think about it, you're able to see whether a person is good for you or not, and simply knowing if a person is good for you or not is enough to sway your emotions one way or the other. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I've waffled on longer than I expected to, but thanks for watching, and have a good day.